Seeds of deception. Jackson Reed stared at his reflection in the rental car's mirror, hardly recognizing himself without the tailored suits and perfectly trimmed beard. The stubble on his face and worn flannel shirt belonged to someone else, someone unburdened by board meetings, acquisition deals, and the crushing loneliness that came with being worth $8 billion. Jack Wilson, he practiced aloud, testing the name he'd be using for the next few months. Simple, forgettable, perfect. The GPS announced his arrival at Willow Creek Vineyard just as the afternoon sun bathed the rolling hills in golden light. Rows of grapevines stretched across the landscape, their leaves rustling in the gentle breeze. It was exactly what the therapist had prescribed: simplicity, manual labor, and anonymity. What the therapist hadn't mentioned was Emma Sinclair. She stood by the entrance to the main house, arms crossed over her faded work shirt, amber eyes narrowed with suspicion. Her chestnut hair was pulled back in a practical braid, revealing a face unmarked by makeup but beautiful in its determined expression. "You must be Jack," she said, not extending her hand. "Dad hired you over the phone, but I'll be supervising your work. Have you ever worked a vineyard before?" Jackson, now Jack, hesitated. "No, but I'm a fast learner and not afraid of hard work." Emma's laugh lacked humor. "We'll see about that. Your cottage is behind the main house. Drop your things and meet me by the equipment shed in 15 minutes. The cottage was simple but charming, with hand-sewn curtains and a small porch overlooking a section of the vineyard. Jackson breathed deeply. 3 months away from emails, shareholders, and people who only saw his bank account. 3 months of being nobody special. 15 minutes later, Emma was demonstrating the proper technique for checking irrigation lines. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, revealing calluses that spoke of years of dedication. "Why Willow Creek?" she asked suddenly. "Most seasonal workers go for the bigger operations." "I wanted something smaller, more authentic," Emma scoffed. Authentic isn't glamorous. It's backaches and sunburns and worrying about frost. It's watching foreclosure notices pile up because 3 bad seasons in a row have nearly bankrupted your family's legacy. Her candor surprised him. "I'm sorry to hear that." "I don't need sympathy," she said, standing. "I need workers who won't quit when things get tough." Over the next week, Jackson learned exactly how tough vineyard work could be. His tech empire had been built on sleepless nights and strategic brilliance, but nothing had prepared him for the physical demands of agricultural labor. Every muscle ached, his hands blistered, then calloused, and sunburn reddened his neck despite liberal applications of sunscreen. Yet something about the work satisfied him deeply. For once, success was measured in tangible results: clean rows, healthy vines, problems solved through direct action rather than delegated through layers of management. Emma remained skeptical but fair. She corrected his mistakes without malice and occasionally rewarded good work with rare smiles that transformed her face. "You're not completely useless," she conceded one evening as they walked back from the fields. The setting sun painted everything in warm hues, including the loose strands of hair that had escaped Emma's braid. "High praise indeed," Jackson replied with a smile. "Don't get cocky. Tomorrow we're checking trellises on the north slope." They paused at the fork in the path where she would continue to the main house, and he to his cottage. In the golden light, with dirt under her nails and determination in her eyes, Emma Sinclair was the most authentic person Jackson had ever met. "Why do you stay?" he asked impulsively. "If things are so difficult financially, why not sell?" Her expression hardened. "Some things matter more than money, Jack. Not that I'd expect you to understand that." As she walked away, Jackson felt the weight of his deception. He understood better than she knew. He'd escaped a world where everything and everyone had a price. But as he watched Emma's retreating form, he wondered if his lies might cost him something truly priceless. Roots taking hold, the July heat settled over Willow Creek Vineyard like a heavy blanket. 3 weeks had passed, and Jackson found himself settling into a routine that felt surprisingly comfortable. Mornings began before dawn, working alongside Emma to check the vines before the worst heat of the day set in. Afternoons were spent repairing equipment or helping with tasks in the cool of the wine cellar. Evenings brought shared meals with Emma and her father, Robert, whose knowledge of winemaking spanned 4 decades, but whose health was visibly declining. "The '97 season reminds me of this one," Robert said one evening, his weathered hands gesturing expansively despite his frailty. "Everyone thought we were done for after that frost, but we produced one of our best Cabernets that year." Emma's face softened when her father spoke of better times. Jackson had learned to treasure these moments when her guard lowered, revealing the passionate woman beneath the practical vineyard manager. "Dad, Jack doesn't want to hear ancient vineyard history," Emma said, though her tone was gentle. "Actually, I do," Jackson replied honestly. In his former life, conversations revolved around market shares and technological innovations. Here, history was measured in seasons, rainfall, and the character of each harvest. Later, as Jackson helped clear dishes, Emma surprised him by asking, "Want to see something special?" She led him to a small hilltop overlooking the entire property. The stars blazed overhead in a way they never did in Seattle, and the air was fragrant with jasmine and ripening fruit. Emma spread a blanket on the grass and produced a bottle of wine from her bag. "Willow Creek Reserve 2018, she said. "The last truly great year we had." As they sipped the ruby liquid, Jackson noted its complexity, bright fruit balanced with earthy undertones and a lingering finish that spoke of careful craftsmanship. "This is extraordinary," he said truthfully. Emma smiled, her face softened by starlight and perhaps the wine. "This is what we're fighting to preserve. Not just the land or the business, but this—" She gestured with her glass. "This expression of place and time and tradition." "Tell me about the foreclosure notices," Jackson said quietly. She sighed, drawing her knees to her chest. 3 bad years. First drought, then a fungal infection, then last year's early frost. The bank's patience is running out, and so are our options." Jackson fought the urge to tell her he could write a check and solve her problems instantly. But that would reveal his lie and rob her of something he was beginning to understand mattered deeply to her, solving her own problems on her own terms. "What about investors?" he asked instead. "We've had offers." Her voice hardened. "Luxury resort developers, mainly. No one interested in actually making wine." She turned to face him directly. "My last boyfriend worked for one of them. Used our relationship to get inside information on our financial situation." The betrayal in her voice made Jackson wince. "Not everyone with money is corrupt, Emma." "Maybe not. But everyone with money wants more of it." She looked away. "Anyway, enough about my problems. Tell me something real about you, Jack." The use of his false name stung. "What do you want to know? Why are you really here? And don't say for the authentic experience." Jackson hesitated, then offered a partial truth. "I needed to disappear for a while. My life before. It was suffocating me." Emma studied him, her eyes reflecting starlight. "Running from something or toward something?" "I didn't know until recently," he admitted. "Now I think I might be running toward something." The moment hung between them, fragile as a soap bubble. Emma's lips parted slightly, and Jackson felt himself leaning forward, drawn by a force more powerful than gravity. Their first kiss tasted of wine and possibility. Her hands, calloused but gentle, framed his face as his arms encircled her waist. When they finally broke apart, Emma looked as startled as Jackson felt. "I shouldn't have done that," she whispered. "Why not?" "Because you'll leave when harvest ends. Everyone does." Jackson wanted to promise he wouldn't, but the lie between them made such promises impossible. Instead, he kissed her again, hoping his actions might speak the truth his words couldn't yet reveal. As July melted into August, their relationship deepened through stolen moments. Sunrise kisses among the vines, hands brushing as they worked side by side, and nights spent talking on Emma's hilltop, learning the constellations of each other's lives while carefully avoiding the black hole of Jackson's true identity. With each passing day, Jackson's deception weighed heavier on him. But so did the realization that he was falling deeply, irrevocably in love with Emma Sinclair and the life he'd found at Willow Creek. Ripening truth. The first grapes of harvest season hung heavy on the vines, their sugars concentrating in the late summer heat. Similarly, Jackson felt his feelings for Emma intensifying with each passing day. They worked side by side from dawn until dusk, preparing for the picking that would begin the following week. "You've got a good eye," Emma said, inspecting a section of Merlot vines Jackson had been monitoring. Their shoulders touched as they examined the fruit together, a casual intimacy that sent electricity through him. "These are almost ready." "I had an excellent teacher," he replied, tucking a stray lock of hair behind her ear. The gesture made her smile, a now frequent expression that transformed her entire face. Robert watched their growing closeness with apparent approval. One evening, he cornered Jackson in the wine cellar. "You're good for her," the older man said without preamble. "She smiles again. Sings sometimes." Jackson felt guilt twist in his gut. "She's extraordinary." "She is," Robert agreed. "And she deserves the truth." Jackson stilled. "Sir, I don't know who you really are, son, but I know you're not just some drifter looking for seasonal work." Robert's eyes, so like his daughter's, held Jackson's gaze. "Your hands weren't calloused when you arrived. You ask questions about vineyard management that reveal a sharp business mind. And sometimes you forget to answer to Jack." Jackson's heart pounded. "I never meant to hurt her." "I believe that." Robert coughed, reminding Jackson of the illness that had been steadily worsening. But secrets have a way of surfacing at the worst possible moment. Best to control when and how the truth comes out. Jackson nodded slowly. "You're right. I'll tell her everything tonight." But fate had other plans. That afternoon, a sleek black car with tinted windows rolled up the dusty drive to Willow Creek. Jackson was checking irrigation lines when he spotted the vehicle and instantly recognized it as his company car. His stomach dropped. Before he could intercept them, his assistant Mia had stepped out of the vehicle and was calling his name, his real name, across the vineyard. "Mr. Reed, thank goodness we found you. There's been an emergency board meeting called. The Osaka deal is falling apart." Emma, who had been working nearby, froze. Her eyes darted between Jackson and the polished woman in business attire who so clearly didn't belong at Willow Creek. "Reed?" Emma repeated. "As in Jackson Reed, the tech billionaire?" The color drained from her face as realization dawned. Jackson moved toward her, but she backed away, betrayal written across her features. "Emma, please let me explain." "Explain what? That everything between us has been a lie?" Her voice trembled with anger. "That you've been slumming it with the country folk for what? Research? Entertainment?" "No, it wasn't like that." "Mr. Reed," Mia interrupted, oblivious to the drama unfolding. "The board is waiting on video conference. It's urgent." Emma laughed bitterly. "By all means, don't keep your board waiting, Mr. Reed." She turned and walked away, her back rigid with hurt. Jackson spent the next 2 hours locked in his cottage, salvaging what he could of the Osaka deal via his laptop while his heart splintered. When the crisis was temporarily contained, he went in search of Emma, finding her in the wine cellar, aggressively sorting bottles. "I came here because I needed to remember what real life felt like," he said softly. "My world is full of people who want things from me. My money, my connections, my company. I never know if someone likes me or what I can give them." Emma didn't look up. "So you lied to me. I gave you a different name, yes. But everything else, how I feel about this place, about you, that's been real. How convenient that you fell for the struggling vineyard owner's daughter." Her voice was acid. "Let me guess. You want to swoop in now with your billions and save us? Be the hero? That's not... I don't need saving, Jackson. Especially not by someone who couldn't even trust me with his real name." She finally looked up, eyes shining with unshed tears. "I think you should go. Emma, please, just go." Outside the cellar, Robert waited, his expression sympathetic but firm. "Give her time, son. She's got her mother's pride." Jackson nodded, feeling hollow. "Take care of her. Always have." Robert coughed again, more severely this time. "But I won't be able to much longer. The doctors gave me 6 months, maybe less." The revelation hit Jackson like a physical blow. "Does Emma know?" "Not the timeline. And she has enough to worry about with the vineyard." Robert placed a hand on Jackson's shoulder. "Sometimes we keep secrets to protect those we love, but eventually, truth finds a way." Jackson watched the sun setting over the vineyard that had become home, wondering if some truths came too late. Bitter harvest. The Willow Creek harvest began without Jackson. Back in his Seattle penthouse, surrounded by the trappings of wealth that once defined him, he felt hollower than ever. The cityscape sprawled beyond floor-to-ceiling windows, gleaming and impersonal, so different from the warm, soil-rich world he'd left behind. "The board is satisfied with the Osaka resolution," Mia reported, setting a tablet before him. "And PR has managed to quell rumors about your disappearance." "We're saying it was a wellness retreat." Jackson barely heard her. His mind was 50 miles south, among the vines where Emma was undoubtedly directing her small crew through the critical harvest period. Without enough hands, she'd be working herself to exhaustion. "Mr. Reed? Did you hear me? The Q3 projections—" "Cancel my meetings for the rest of the day," Jackson interrupted, rising abruptly. "And get me everything you can find on sustainable vineyard practices and soil regeneration." Mia blinked in surprise but nodded. Of course. That evening, Jackson found himself video conferencing with Dr. Elena Vasquez, the world's leading expert on agricultural soil science. "The samples you sent show fascinating properties," Dr. Vasquez explained, her excitement evident even through the screen. "The microbiome profile is extraordinarily diverse, particularly in beneficial fungi." "Where did you say these came from?" Jackson had been careful to collect soil samples before leaving Willow Creek, initially out of scientific curiosity about the vineyard's unique terroir. "A small vineyard in Napa. They've had 3 bad seasons, but historically produced exceptional wines." "That makes sense. This soil has tremendous potential, but it's suffering from cumulative stress. With the right regenerative approach, you could not only restore but enhance its productive capacity." For the first time in weeks, Jackson felt a spark of hope. "How quickly could such an approach show results?" Dr. Vasquez considered. "With immediate implementation, you might see improvement in next year's harvest. Significant improvement in 2 to 3 years." "Not soon enough," Jackson murmured, thinking of the foreclosure threats. "What about creating a controlled environment to demonstrate the potential? A proof of concept?" 2 days later, Jackson was directing the conversion of an unused Reed Technologies warehouse into a state-of-the-art agricultural laboratory. The project consumed him, offering both distraction from his heartache and a chance, however slim, to help Emma without violating her independence. Meanwhile, he discreetly reached out to Robert with regular calls, checking on both his health and the harvest progress. The news was consistently troubling. Robert's condition worsening, the harvest yield disappointing, and Emma withdrawing into herself. "She found an investor," Robert revealed during one late-night call. "Some wine conglomerate willing to keep the Willow Creek label but change everything else. She's meeting with their lawyers next week." Jackson closed his eyes, picturing the corporate transformation of Emma's beloved vineyard into a soulless production facility. "And she's okay with that?" "She says she's being practical." Robert's voice weakened with each word. "But she cries at night when she thinks I can't hear." That night, Jackson made a decision. He couldn't change the past or fix everything with money, but he could offer Emma a genuine alternative, one based on science and respect for her vineyard's unique heritage. The next morning, he boarded his private jet not as a billionaire swooping in to save the day, but as a man with nothing more than an olive branch and a desperate hope that Emma might still care enough to listen. Harvest was ending when Jackson's rental car once again rolled up the dusty drive to Willow Creek. The property looked different, not just seasonally changed, but somehow diminished, as though reflecting the spirits of its caretakers. He found Emma in the cellar, recording measurements from fermentation tanks with mechanical precision, her face drawn with exhaustion. "What are you doing here?" she asked when she noticed him, her voice flat. "I have something to show you." He held out a tablet. "About your soil." Curiosity briefly overcame her anger. "My soil?" "Willow Creek's terroir is exceptional, potentially world-class, but it's been under cumulative stress. That's why your last 3 harvests failed." He hesitated. "I've been working with soil scientists to develop a regenerative protocol specifically for your vineyard." Emma's eyes narrowed. "You've been experimenting with my land?" "No, with samples I took before I left. With soil that matches your unique microbiome profile." He gently placed the tablet in her hands. "Look at the results." The control group represents your current conditions. The experimental group shows what could happen with targeted intervention. As Emma scrolled through the data, her expression shifted from skepticism to reluctant interest. The images showed vines in identical conditions except for the soil treatment. One struggling, the other vibrant with health. This could be Willow Creek in 18 months, Jackson said softly. Not managed by some faceless corporation, but by you, producing wines that express your family's legacy and vision. Emma looked up, conflict evident in her eyes. Why are you doing this? Because I love you, Jackson answered simply. And because I was wrong not to trust you with the truth from the beginning. She turned away, placing the tablet on a nearby barrel. I'm meeting with Global Wine Group's lawyers tomorrow to sign preliminary acquisition papers. They're offering enough to clear our debts and keep Dad comfortable. And what happens to the vineyard? To your dreams? Dreams don't pay medical bills? Her voice cracked. Dad's worse. The new treatments aren't covered by insurance. Understanding dawned. That's why you're selling. Emma's shoulders slumped. Some things matter more than money, right? Isn't that what I told you? Well, some things matter more than pride, too. Jackson stepped closer, careful not to touch her, though everything in him yearned to. What if there was another option? One that keeps the vineyard in your family, funds your father's treatment, and implements this soil regeneration program? I'm not taking your charity. Not charity, partnership. He took a deep breath. I want to invest in Willow Creek, minority stake only with no operational control. You make the wines, run the business, carry on your family legacy. I provide capital and connections. The soil science is simply my way of demonstrating the vineyard's true potential. Emma finally turned to face him, eyes glistening. Why should I trust you now? You shouldn't, Jackson admitted. I have to earn that trust back. But I'm asking for a chance to try, because what we could have, is worth fighting for. In the silence that followed, the future of Willow Creek Vineyard and two hearts that had found each other against all odds hung in the balance. Vintage love autumn painted Willow Creek in russets and golds as Emma stood on her favorite hilltop, watching the sun rise over the vineyard. 6 weeks had passed since Jackson's return. 6 weeks of cautious negotiation, both professional and personal. The Global Wine Group acquisition had been politely declined. Instead, a new partnership agreement sat on her desk, awaiting final signatures. Emma heard footsteps behind her and knew without looking that it was Jackson. She'd grown attuned to his presence again, despite her best efforts to maintain emotional distance. Your father's latest scans look promising, he said, stopping beside her without presuming to stand too close. The oncologist says the experimental treatment is showing better results than expected. Emma nodded, grateful beyond words for Robert's improving condition. The specialized treatment program, coincidentally developed by a medical research firm in Jackson's investment portfolio, had halted the disease's progression. It wasn't a cure, but it offered precious time. Thank you, she said softly. The words encompassed so much more than the medical intervention. Jackson gazed out over the property, where teams of workers were implementing the soil regeneration protocols under Dr. Vasquez's supervision. The cover crop germination is ahead of schedule. Elena thinks the microbial balance is already showing improvement. I know. I check the data every morning. Emma had immersed herself in soil science over the past weeks. Her natural intelligence quickly grasping the complex interplay of minerals, microorganisms, and plant health. They stood in companionable silence as the rising sun illuminated the landscape. So much had changed, yet the essential character of Willow Creek remained, perhaps even strengthened by the challenges overcome. The partnership papers are ready, Emma said finally. I've reviewed everything with my lawyer. It's fair, more than fair. Jackson turned to her. Are you sure about this? About working with me? The question carried weight beyond business considerations. Emma met his gaze directly, seeing past the billionaire to the man who had worked beside her in the fields, who had listened to her dreams, who had respected her enough to offer partnership rather than rescue. I'm sure about the business arrangement, she answered carefully. The rest is more complicated, I understand. Jackson's voice held resignation. Trust takes time to rebuild. Emma took a step closer. But some things are worth that time. Hope flickered in his eyes. Emma, you hurt me, she interrupted. Not because of who you are, but because you didn't trust me with the truth. I know. And I'll regret that for the rest of my life. The rest of your life? A smile tugged at her lips. That's a long time to carry regret, Jackson. He matched her tentative smile. I was thinking it might be better filled with other things. Happier things. The Harvest Festival tradition at Willow Creek dated back generations, a celebration of the season's work and a blessing for the wines slowly developing in their barrels. This year, the gathering held special significance as the first public event under the new partnership. Strings of lights illuminated the courtyard between the main house and the winery. Long tables groaned under the weight of local delicacies. Musicians played traditional harvest tunes while workers, neighbors, and wine industry friends mingled freely. Robert Sinclair, looking stronger than he had in months, raised a glass of Willow Creek's special reserve. To new beginnings, he toasted, and to my daughter, whose courage and vision will carry our family legacy forward. Emma, dressed in a simple emerald dress that highlighted the amber of her eyes, accepted the toast with grace. Her gaze found Jackson across the gathering, handsome in casual elegance, but notably lacking the artificial polish of wealth. Here, among the people of Willow Creek, he was simply a man, valued for his contributions rather than his bank account. Later, as the celebration continued around them, Emma led Jackson away from the crowd to her hilltop sanctuary. The harvest moon illuminated the landscape in silver light, the vineyard stretching below them like a promise waiting to be fulfilled. I signed the papers, she said, turning to face him. We're officially partners. Jackson's eyes searched hers. Just business partners? Emma stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him in the cool evening air. That depends. On what? On whether Jackson Reed is brave enough to be as real as Jack Wilson was. Her hand reached up to touch his face, tracing the line of his jaw. The man I fell in love with worked beside me in these fields. He listened to my dreams and shared his own. He saw me, not as a struggling vineyard owner's daughter, but as Emma. Jackson caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. I am that man, Emma. The name was false, but the feelings were real, are real. I love you. I've loved you since that first week when you told me I was holding the pruning shears wrong. Emma laughed softly. You were holding them wrong. I know. His free arms circled her waist, drawing her closer. And I'm grateful every day that you cared enough to correct me. Their lips met in a kiss that held both reunion and new beginning. Emma melted against him, finally allowing herself to embrace not just the man, but the future they might build together, a future where wealth and status mattered less than shared purpose and genuine connection. When they finally parted, Emma rested her head against Jackson's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. So what happens now, Mr. Reed? Now? He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Now we make wine together. We heal this land. We build something authentic. Emma looked up at him, her face glowing with moonlight and possibility. I think I'd like that. Below them, the vines of Willow Creek stood in ordered rows, their roots stretching deep into soil that was already beginning to regenerate. Like the vineyard itself, what grew between Emma and Jackson had weathered damage and deception, only to emerge stronger, a vintage love that promised to deepen and mature with each passing season. You know, Emma said, her voice playful as they walked hand in hand back toward the celebration. You're still going to have to learn how to prune properly. Jackson laughed, the sound echoing across the moonlit vineyard. I'm counting on you to teach me, every day, for as long as it takes. That might be a lifetime, she warned, squeezing his hand. I'm hoping it will be, he replied, drawing her close once more beneath the harvest moon.